Welcome to I Have Some Questions. The show is all about asking questions our guests have never asked themselves before, never thought about, or been too afraid to explore. It's designed to uncover the human story at the root of successes and failures and help us as an audience learn and grow from that story. My hope is that you'll hear brilliant guests exploring new ideas and challenging themselves in new ways of thinking. I think this makes for great conversations. I'm going to bring on entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, scientists, and frankly, any vein of super interesting, successful, and passionate human I can find. I am fascinated by passionate people, and I have some questions for them. I'm Erik Berglund, and I hope you'll join me every week for new episodes. Welcome back to I Have Some Questions. I'm Erik Berglund, and we're making a slight change to our Monday episodes here. I've really struggled as I've launched this podcast with my solo episodes. And the reason was, if you've listened to any of them, you may have found, the idea of this podcast is I have some questions. And a lot of those episodes were showing up as I have some answers. And that's not what I was looking for. I didn't enjoy making them, even though I like talking about those topics and concepts. I just didn't feel like a podcast was the right way for me to go about it. I wasn't enjoying making them. And so I asked another stellar leadership coach if she would be interested in co-hosting the Monday episodes with me. So that's what's going to happen moving forward in these episodes. It's going to be a conversation around some of these questions with another highly qualified coach. And I think they should present a more interesting angle, and certainly they'll be more fun for me to make. So I'm hoping that translates over to you. So my guest in these episodes, my co-host in these episodes is Alli Murphy. Alli is a leadership strategist, a coach, and a speaker, and she's the founder of Work and Thrive HQ. Alli primarily works with ambitious women leaders, and she tries to help them build careers that feel just as good as they look on paper. She's really known for being very warm, direct, and refreshing and practical. Hope that comes through in our conversations here. And she tries to teach a new playbook for leaders that blends ambition and well-being. She's been on over 650 stages as a speaker. She's worked with the largest companies out there, Microsoft, Best Buy, the Susan G. Komen Foundation. And before launching her company, she was a managing director that scaled seven-figure programs and really led organizational transformation while really championing a people-first culture and consistently taking 5 or more weeks of work-free PTO. She's very good at practicing what she preached. And today, her talks and programs really help women trade the old success playbook of always on for one that's really built on authenticity, energy, and leadership that lasts. And while Alli is primarily focused on working with women, she also runs My Language of Leadership program. She's the facilitator in those programs. That's how we've come to get to know each other better and better. And everything she talks about in her programs is highly applicable to us men as well. So I hope you'll join me in welcoming her on these Monday episodes. I'm going to post the links to her LinkedIn and her website and all those details in the show notes for Mondays. But I'll hope you'll join me for this episode of I Have Some Questions with my co-host, Alli Murphy. All right, Alli, I had a fantastic guest on the podcast earlier today, though to be fair, when this airs, I don't know where it will air in relation to that interview. Anyway, her name is Patty Dale Tai, and Patty has written a wonderful book called From Ordinary to Extraordinary. And in it, she really articulates some of the lessons she's learned as going from someone without an MBA who didn't really study business much to in the C-suite at some of the largest companies, Humana, AT&T, et cetera. And one of the moments we explored together was this dynamic of when you're hired from the outside, which she has almost always been, and brought into a company, you automatically have this lack of trust that you haven't really earned. She articulated, like, I haven't really done anything to harm these individuals. Sure, maybe they wanted this job, or maybe they didn't think I was the right person for this job, but no overt action of mine has caused a lack of trust. And yet, if I'm ever going to get anything done with these individuals, I have to earn their trust. And the C-suite's not the only place this type of dynamic takes place, right? So I wanted to ask you just a little bit about trust. Maybe I want to approach it from two angles, small topic, no big deal.
Right.
Angle one is, how do you build trust with people who don't even know you, but think they know you? And that's like a tactical question. Like, what do you specifically do in that situation? And number two, as you go through that, how do you actually internally manage the frustration and voice and patience required to execute this. So it's like the tactics of what do you do? And then there's like the human of you who might be furious and annoyed while doing them. Two-part question. How do you do that?
Really small question, Eric. First off, it's a shitty situation to be in. And it's not your fault. Speaking from my own experience, I've been less of the hired in and more of when I was still in corporate, we were acquired. So my CEO retired, who I had reported to, and I had a new CEO come in who I was reporting directly to, who said, like, you come in with full trust and we can go down from there if things go wrong, but you come in with full trust. Even if he said those things, it doesn't always feel like it. And so I think a couple tactical things that I did in that situation and that I've seen other people do in other situations are, one, what are the people's goals? Like, what do different people care about? And starting to learn what those things are so that as you're working or as you're talking or as you're co-working with somebody else, you can start connecting those pieces together. And people start to say, oh, Alli really knows or Erik really understands what my department does or what is important to me or what my goals are. So that's one. Two is a lot of listening, especially when you're first coming in. I think, oh, I just got goosebumps. That's fascinating. When you're first coming in, I think there's a lot of feelings that other people have of what's going to change. Do they think they know better? We've done it this way for so long. What if they throw it to the wayside? And so I think there's something to be said about listening and gathering feedback from other people and sharing how much you appreciate that before you make 75 million changes. Mm. Sometimes you need to make some changes fast and that's okay. But like, where is that line? And the third one that came to mind right away is about proactive communication. So with me having a new CEO coming in, it was like, hey, here's my team's top priorities for this week. Here's what moved forward and here's where we're stuck. Things like that, or knowing what his goals were, meant that I could touch on each of those going forward. And so I think it's almost like not treading on people's toes, which sounds silly, but as you start working there over time, usually those people realize, oh, this person's damn good at what they do. And those kind of discomforts and fear that they have around change start to dissipate. What do you think? That's my starting ground.
Yeah, fair. We'll come back to the second half of the equation, which is how you manage that internally. And by the way, for what it's worth, it feels like you might have read Patty's book because her big, her big or helped her write it. I don't know, but like,
nope.
Her big approach was don't make any changes for 30, 60, 90 days and articulate that and go in with an intention to learn and understand, because you don't know, and to pretend otherwise is what's really going to damage trust. And so,
okay, so now I feel really smart. Do I get a gold star?
Heck yeah, multiple.
Okay, great.
My bent is, as most of you know, is to lean into like the communication side of it. And so my instinct is to say yes, and you really need to bake out some rules of engagement with people, because what's inevitable in that first 30, 60, 90 days, right, in your listening period, which you really never stop, but there's a concentrated period of onboarding and downloading and all those things, you're inevitably going to run into some decisions that need to be made. And you're inevitably going to run into some executions that don't go the way they're supposed to, some deadlines that don't get hit, some feedback that, even if it's not finalized, probably should be shared rather than withheld. So there's some inevitable things you're going to have to go through with these individuals. And we really like it when leaders, whether they're truly our boss or just people that are alongside us, help us think ahead and are accurate about it. And so the ability to go to those folks and say, hey, look, my goal is for the next 30, 60, 90 days to listen as much as we can. And at some point along the way, I am going to need to weigh in on certain things. What's the best way for me to do that in a way that you would respect and appreciate? You know, or inevitably, as we're having a policy debate, my 23rd day in, I'm going to have an opinion that might run afoul of somebody else's here. And how has it gone in the past? How do you all here respectfully disagree with each other and debate the merits rather than feeling like I'm coming after you? And these are nuanced things I'm using as examples, but if you're in a situation, and again, we're using the C-suite as an example here, that's not almost That's a very small portion of people that get to that point. Maybe you're entering a sales team. Maybe you're joining an account management team. Maybe you're merging into a nonprofit. It doesn't really matter. If there's other humans involved and you have to earn this trust, there's some amount of ability to say, I bet we're going to go through X together in the next certain amount of time. How do we want to handle that? That I think goes a long way towards earning that trust. And then you just have to execute on whatever rules you set up together.
Yep. I think rules of engagement are really important. And a lot of times that can happen through conversation. Like you just gave, 5, 7 examples of ways that you could phrase that. One of the things that I've done to short circuit figuring other people out is, I'm guessing you've heard of manager readmes.
Remind me.
No. Oh, so manager readmes, which is not what I'm going to recommend, and I'll share why in a second, but manager readmes are essentially a boss puts together a Google Doc, a PowerPoint, a Notion, or whatever of like, here's a little bit about me. Here's the style of communication that I have. Here are my expectations. Here's this, that, blah, 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 blah. In some cases, it's super helpful because when you're coming in, you're like, what the heck does my boss expect? And you don't have to figure out all of that on your own. In my opinion, where manager readmes go wrong is they're one directional. Yeah, doesn't help me understand how does Erik like receiving feedback, or what are Juliet's goals, or what motivates Bob versus really pisses him off. And so I'm happy to share it with anybody that wants it. But what I built is basically a working relationship doc. And so the leader fills it out and the direct report fills it out. And there's a variety of different questions. And then you talk through it.
Cool.
And so later on, when I'm sitting there going, oh, crap, I got to give feedback to X person, I don't really remember. Do they want it just in a one-on-one conversation? Do they want a heads up over Slack first? I have all of that info there. And I think that can really help short circuit how long it takes to build trust. And it's a tool that you can use and come back to.
Man, I love that. And my instinct, I haven't heard of this manager readme thing before. And I'm glad, because my instinct is I don't like that, because I'm paraphrasing based on one sentence you've shared with me here, right? So I could be missing some nuance, and I suspect I am. But my point is, it feels a lot like adapt to me. And I utterly don't believe that to be the right. It's my job as a leader to maximize what I am able to get my team to contribute. It's not necessarily their job to adapt how they contribute to the leadership style I bring to the table. And no, there's environments where that might need to merge or blend or something. But in general, I would prefer something that's more collaborative or frankly oriented the other way. You know, I like your idea best, but as a better second place than this manager readme thing, it would be like, have them have them tell me how I need to read them. Because that's far more important to me than how they need to interpret everything I say. I need to adapt differently. Anyway, love that concept. Okay, so let's go to the second half of the equation, because knowing what to do is one piece of the puzzle. And yet, put yourself, just humanize for a second. You've been hired to this position and everybody there doubts you, or you perceive they doubt you. And it might not even be just perception, snide comments, ignoring, right? Like we can all be passive aggressive as all hell. All sorts of things can happen in corporate environments like that. That can be really infuriating. So what are some internal tricks, Alli, that you have found to be effective with the women's group you work with, or just in your life, to help someone regulate in a contentious environment like that so that they can execute some of these tactics effectively?
This is such a good question. And I would say it happens when you're the person coming in and you're feeling all those things you just talked about. But it can also happen when you're getting a new boss. Like when I had a new CEO, I've got 2 people who have new bosses, new CEOs that came in as well. And so the feelings are the same. And there's often this huge feeling of, I have to prove that I belong. I have to prove that I belong here and that I can do this thing well. And so one of the first things that I recommend that everybody does is you kind of have to start ahead of time, but just create a little wins folder for yourself. I don't care if it's in your email or on your desktop, but like, what are screenshots of notes that people sent you about how great X was, or reminders of a project that you ran, like things that you can do to build yourself back up and to remember, oh, damn, I am really good at this. These people just don't know it yet. So that's one. If you don't have something like that already, start one. But another thing I've done with people is have clients go out and do a superpowers exercise. So go out and go ask 3, you can make up a number, but like 3 people that you've worked with in the past and maybe 3 people in your personal life. What do they think your strengths or your superpowers are? and then get those back and collect them, you're usually going to be shocked at, oh, yep, this is a great reminder of all of the things that are true, even if it doesn't feel like it here. So that's kind of on the building yourself up side. On the flip side, as much as it sucks, part of it's just recognizing that it's kind of human behavior and it will pass over time, and it's not anything you did, which makes it even worse, but like acknowledging that matters. And then the last thing I would say is you got to do stuff outside of work. Like that can't be all consuming. So I don't care if that's lunch with friends or grabbing a coffee with a colleague that you actually are connecting with, or actually unplugging and going to the gym or watching Netflix or whatever, but like finding ways to disengage from what's happening so that it's not the only thing going on.
I like all of those. It's so interesting, and I'm glad we do these together because your first two answers were very external.
Yeah.
Right. And seek validation and reminders and those things, which is like really healthy. We all like that. But my brain doesn't ever go to that place. Even though I definitely value it. It's just not how I typically am wired. But that's super real. And having those external reminders or wins in your folder or something like that can certainly prop you up in those moments, and would make mine even easier. Because my answer to this question is, I think you really have to have some internal conviction that you've clarified on your own beforehand. And like, if you're going to chart an unpopular course, and right now the unpopular course might just be you being here, like your
nothing else.
The unpopular course, right? Like you may steer the company into an unpopular course down the road. You might not, but any unpopular course requires you ahead of time to be really convicted that that's the right course. Because you're going to have to weather some storms along the way, and you're going to have to convince the sailors that, no, we're going the right direction. I promise, don't mutiny on me here. And like, you can't do that unless you internally have squared with the reality that you believe this is the right thing. And there's usually some function of your ability to articulate that to yourself. You might write it out. You might say it out loud. You might give like a, some of y'all might remember this, the, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like you SNL clip. I can tell by Alli's face she's never seen that before. Sending you that after this.
That is also my homework, apparently.
Leap. Yeah, exactly. But there's some element of like, and it could manifest in a nerdy self-talk like that that's amusing, but it more often than not is like a squaring of the shoulders to the reality in front of you, and therefore acknowledging, all right, we're going to take some hits. We're going to weather some storms. And that's just a part of the deal. And to your point, yeah, it's part of human behavior. But like right now I'm the unpopular course, but I'm convicted that I'm the right person for this role. And here's why. And I'm not going to go necessarily sell that or tell that. But in here, I have to have that squared away before I can really weather those conversations or patience or battles or whatever it might be.
Okay, so I'm curious because I love that. I'm like, if everybody had that sense of conviction and confidence, things would be a lot easier. What I find more often is that the women that I work with often feel the need to prove themselves instead.
Ooh, great.
What would you say there? Like you might even feel that way internally, but as soon as you open email and everything else, you're like, shit, I'm in proving mode again. Mode, not mood.
This is a huge thing I talk about with newly promoted leaders. And we've done this for 8 years now. And of helping people through this particular part. And this is a reality that you kind of have to gut check. It's part of the conviction kind of spiel that I work leaders through sometimes. You have to remember this really important fact. You don't know why you got selected to be the person who got the job. You didn't make the choice. You didn't hire yourself. You didn't write the job description. You didn't do the background check. You didn't sit on the other side of the interview table and ask all the questions to verify that you were the right individual for the job. So if somebody were to ask you, why you? Your genuine answer could be, I don't fucking know. Like, I didn't hire me. What a stupid person to ask. Like, I don't know. Now, almost nobody ever actually asks you directly, why'd they hire you instead of me? Like, that's very rarely what plays out. I'm not saying it never does. I'm just saying it usually doesn't come about that way.
Yeah.
But we have to recognize, like, you didn't make that decision to hire you. You don't know what bet the boss or owners or board put on you. You could ask, and that might be a healthy thing to do, but most people don't. They don't know.
Yeah.
What do you know? Well, you know that you bought into the mission. You know that you signed up for the difficulty. You know that you bring a set of skills that will be meaningful and valuable, even if you're not quite sure exactly how yet. You do know that you're committed to hitting those goals and bringing the people along with you that it takes, right? There's a number of things you do know.
Yeah.
And if you can just remember to share the stuff you do know and not take responsibility for an answer you never could possibly even hypothecate accurately, let alone give any evidence for, it takes a lot of the pressure off the need to justify. Not because someone asking you to justify would ever happen, or because you might not think about that. It's just that why would you hold yourself to knowing something that you literally could never fully understand?
I like that. One of the things that I say relatively often when this comes up is you were hired for a reason. Like when people are in this, like, how do I do this? How do I get my boss to see me this way? I feel like I'm proving over here, blah, 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 blah. I take a step back and I say, you were hired for a reason, or you were promoted for a reason. You've already earned the spot. How would you lead if you felt that way? And that kind of like starts to shatter and they go, oh. And I think logically they know that, but having somebody actually ask you the question and say, no, you deserve to be here, unlocks something different.
It does. I love the way you phrased that. You earned this, right? And like deserve has so many weird connotations to it sometimes, but earned, somebody saw that you were the right person to invest and believe in this way. And that's an important thing to recognize. I love that reality for you.
Yeah. All right. What do we want to leave people with? You first.
I mean, I'm tempted to leave the image of Ted Lasso slapping the believe sign. Is this another reference you don't get? You can all witness, you can't see it, but you can witness the disappointment. Like, not getting the old SNL reference I get, but not knowing the Ted Lasso slapping the believe sign. Oh man. Okay. That's what I would leave with that you gotta believe, man, that you are the right person for that job. And that conviction, that belief, that's what's going to get you through it. What about you?
You said that he hits a button. I was like,
well, he writes this sign. See, this football coach takes over this soccer team, doesn't know what he's doing. And his leading philosophy, not understanding soccer, is believe, which seems really stupid, except he lives it incredibly well. And the team absolutely does end up believing. But he has this sign that he writes with a marker on a yellow piece of paper and he slaps it on the wall. And that's like his answer to just about everything. He's just got to believe.
Okay, well, when you said slap, I thought he was slapping a button. So where my brain went and what I'm going to leave people with is there is no Staples easy button that you can slap for building trust. Thank you. I worked on that really hard. And it's going to take time. So do the things to protect your energy, to fill your cup that you need. And then also go listen to people, go have conversations, go learn, and you'll figure the rest out in time.
Great advice. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us this week. Don't forget to take a second and subscribe. Maybe even share this episode with somebody it made you think of or someone you think would take some value from it. This show is all about uncovering the brilliance and humanity of high performers. And whether those performers have a massive following or a podcast or a book, or they're a business owner, or they're buried somewhere in a corporation, or maybe they're a nonprofit leader, or, they don't necessarily have to have a title. I'm really fascinated by people who are passionate and who are doing interesting things. So if you or somebody you know would be a good guest, don't hesitate to reach out to me on LinkedIn or send me an email at hello@languageofleadership.io to make that connection. I'll see you next week.